Hello and welcome to BlitPaint version 0.49. This version is going to talk about a little bit everything that's been done so far and what everything means. Now this menu is just a undo memory menu, so if you don't want any undos, just choose none. Light for a little bit, medium for quite a lot of undo memory, and high for the highest. Now the high one will take the longest, so I'm just going to click that to give you an idea how long it takes on my machine. If there's any problems with that, just go for one of the lighter options. Uses a big chunk of memory and gives you loads of undos. So at the top left you'll see this memory bar plus undo memory 0 out of 56,000, and that stands for all the little plots that you plot down to make this brush stroke, right? So it's used up 192 plots to make this stroke. You can press enter and it'll play through that. And basically when you undo it, just goes back in time through those plots. You can reset everything, so if you do some strokes and things, you can press clear and reset. That'll clear all your layers and reset all the undo memory again. Okay, there's no way back after that. Okay, so at the top you've got all these brushes, and by default this rotation function is on, and you see it kind of follows the brush. Now if you do Shift R, now there might be a shortcut for this later, but it rotates at 90 degrees, so that if you draw this way, so Shift R, Shift R, Shift R, right? But otherwise it's going to follow the rotation of the brush. Right. You can switch this off just by clicking this guy, and it means it will go the way you want it to. And then Shift R will make it go 90 degrees. Okay, and you can colour these, right? You can add a bit of colour to this. Imagine this is some sort of fan brush. Okay, so imagine you want two colours to mix from. You choose this middle one here, or you can press D, or you can use the mouse wheel, right? So you can draw with the mouse as well, by the way. You don't have to use a tablet all the time. It actually is quite nice. So you choose two colours with left click and right click, and it's going to vary between these two in this mode. In this mode it's only going to use the first tone, like this. Right, but in this mode it's going to shuffle between these two tones, and it gives you a lot of variation. Right, so you can even change one tone up, get a little bit lighter, and even lighter, yeah, make some nice grass. Right. Okay, so all your brushes are all full colour, and when you choose a colour it multiplies the base colour with the colour you choose. So this greeny yellow multiplied by red makes a kind of greeny yellow red. It's also mixing between these two tones, right? So if your object's mostly white, if your brush is mostly white, it will get the actual, like this leaf is a really good example. Right, it's mostly white, as you can see, but as I choose two colours, this green and this yellow, right, it's going to mix between those two. It's going to choose somewhere between like this grey, and it's going to pick all random sort of colours between those and just multiply this base colour grey with it. Right, now this third mode actually looks at any image, even if it's got colour, it looks at it and turns it into grayscale, then takes that grayscale value, and if it's dark it's going to choose this green, and if it's light it's going to choose this yellow. So you get variation based on the grayscale tones in the brush. That means if you've got a brush already with colour in it, and you're in this mode, let's see, I'm going to make this one black and white, right? But if I go back to this mode where it's just a single colour, we get the true actual colour of that brush. Right? And there's a little bit of yellow in it just to make it more suitable for tinting when you are in like the single colour mode. It does get a little bit of tint here and there. It's not completely the true value, whereas this mode will give you a mix between these two based on the grayscale, and if I was to choose both colours the same, it would end up just a solid stencil type colour. So you can make stencils if you like, in that sense. Like I can plot one of these down, right, and basically choose this mode. This is like alpha lock, and choose a different colour, and then just sort of plot over and above that. It's pretty cool. So that's these modes. This is the mixer mode where it shuffles between two tones, multiplying the base colour. This one just takes this tone and multiplies the base colour, and this one looks at the grayscale version of the brush and mixes between these two tones based on the grayscale. Okay, so there's loads of brushes here. There's loads of ones that I've hand painted, and you can change the spacing, rotational range, so you get a little bit of variation. You can change the size variation. Okay, the bigger that is, the more different that's going to be. You can make it follow the brush again. Then you can tint it using the two tones. Usually a kind of light and darkish tone is all you really need. That way you get just variations in brightness. If you want variations in colour, choose the two colours you want. So I tend to go for light colours because it's multiplying in here. So keeping it bright keeps it right. I'm going to choose one or two. So I get kind of bluey tinge in some of these. There's some 3D models that I brought in. You can do some cool stuff with them. These are just renders. Okay, more kind of arty brushes. You see it's mixing between the two tones there, but if I choose this bottom one, it's just this one. And if you find it's going to be a little bit repetitive, just put this rotation on, a little bit of these, a little bit of this and that, and eventually you'll get something that's quite, got a lot of variation in it. And then you can start to pick your tones and make a nice painting. You can use the numbers 1 to 0 to get different opacity values as well. Build things up a bit. Some of these brushes are really nice to use. Got nice kind of arty effects to them. And all the brushes are built up of sub-images. If I leave it alone, you'll see that it's going through all the sub-images that are in this brush at random. So some of them don't have any, some of them have only 2 or 3. Right, and you might want, if I turn that off, you might want it to not just point this way all the time. So there's something here called Flippy X, which randomizes which way it's pointing. Or if you want it just to flip it, you just choose flip, and it points it the other way. Alright, so we've got loads of brushes. These ones are just generic shapes, and these can be quite nice as well. We can make them follow, rotate, and cool stuff like that. There's this little isometric set, which I'll talk about in a minute. There's these grid setups for that, and a whole lot of other stuff. Also have these little outline drawings, which are all in white, but you can basically tint those black. Let me just add a gradient. To add a gradient, you just choose 2 colors. And then you right click one of these gradients that you want. I'm going to choose this one. Okay, I'm going to scale up a bit holding S down, and let's go for a dark blue actually, on this layer. And stamp mode means I only plot 1 down. You can see it's changing randomly through these images. It's also giving me variation in these tones. I don't want that, I just want this one. Alright, so I'm just going to plot these down, and they are random. Let's put Flippy X on so that we get left and right variations. Alright, I'm making a little kind of bush scene or something there. Right, you can add little petals and things. Now, it does like to change colour back because it remembers the colour of the brush, but I'm going to make that an option later. There'll be extra options like that. Again, I keep forgetting. You can make a nice little drawing up eventually, and like if I choose this one, you can do something like scatter by pressure. Got size by pressure there, size variation, and then make the brush quite small, and then follow the mouse. You can turn stamp mode off and choose that colour. You can kind of make nice sort of shapes really quickly. Like, I don't know if that's meant to be a tree, probably better with this sort of thing. But it remembers the settings for each brush. So if you had scatter before, again, I'll make these options, and so on and so forth, right? A couple other drawings here. Then there's all these slots where you can add in your own stuff. Now you can either use the grabber here. The grabber's going to take what it sees and turn that into an image. Right, you see it's made a copy of that, and it's almost like copy and paste. But it gets affected by the brushes and things, so you can turn off Flippy X, you can put it in stamp mode, clear everything, and then you can just stamp one of those down. Also size by pressure, turn that off. Alright, so you've got a little version of your image there. So the grabber brush is quite useful. You can also load in your own image. Let's just say like this one. Don't think that actually loaded in. Let's try something else, maybe the wrong format. Sometimes it doesn't like JPEG. Yeah, it doesn't like JPEG. So there's an image there, and you can sort of get it to the size you want it and plot it down. Size by pressure went back to normal. So I'll just, yeah. And then you can carry on working on something like that. If you choose a regular brush, maybe like this one, or in fact a little scatter one's good, and you draw, let's go, if you draw holding shift, it's going to try and sample some colours nearby and give you a kind of smudge effect, put rotation on as well, and you can kind of get an extra bit of texture out of stuff doing this. Put it on Flippy X and it'll get something different. Even put a little bit of rotational add. Now you can use E and R for this. You can see the rotational add just changing a bit, and that's just going to give me a little bit of an offset, and that plus Flippy X would be quite interesting. Now there is a cross-hatching one here that's designed for that. If I make that quite big, you can see I can really kind of cross-hatch all this up to get a completely different look all over the picture. It just samples nearby colours. Right, that's a cool feature, right? So there's another secret mode that I'll show you now, because it would be interesting to see how this looks when we go into this mode. Now, if you press C6-4, it goes into this Commodore 64 mode and it pixelates the image. Alright, it keeps all the original colours and stuff, but it gives you this kind of Commodore palette that you can then use to trace over everything. And there's some little brushes here that are, some are black and white. And using this mode up here, remember, if it's white, it's going to use the top colour. If it's black, it's going to use the bottom colour. So we can actually make the little kind of checkered mix that you often see in these old school games by left clicking, right clicking. And then if you hold down shift while you draw, it'll kind of make sure like you've got all your rotation stuff off as well, like size by pressure and things. I think it should be. For me, it just doesn't look, something's not quite right. Huh. I wonder what's missing. And I'm constantly finding little bugs as I play this. But let's try that. No. Scale. Scale range, maybe it's that one. Let's try one of these bigger guys. I know what it is. Flippy X is on. Yeah. So just watch. Some of these settings don't get remembered per brush, and I'm just going to clear that layer. Right. It doesn't remove the undo history of any layer clears, so just be careful that you can always step back to the point where, like, if I was to undo now, I'm going to get everything back in there. So the best thing to do is just to erase. And to erase, you can press the eraser here. I'm just going to scale up a bit. Obviously that uses up plots, but these are things that will be ironed out later. Okay, so I can actually go to this layer and dim it down. In fact, that doesn't work in this mode, which is too bad. But I'll carry on. So I can go here and turn off the eraser and basically start plotting down some of these tones. I'm going to go for this bigger one here. Back to that and just reset everything. No scale range. And then I can choose my two tones, so this one and this one. I don't know if you've noticed the Commodore music in the background, or if you can even hear that, but it's a little feature that I added. Now I've organised this palette in terms of luminance, the brightness, and each of these two is a certain grayscale level, so it's, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's 7 grayscale levels in between here. Okay, that's enough of that. To come out of this mode, just press 0, 0, 0, and eventually it'll come back out. Now, you still keep the pixels to some degree, but you get everything else back because it's just a shader. You can actually bring the shader back in by using the top left key that's just under the escape key. I have no idea what you call it. It's got some weird sort of bracket on it, and a straight line and a little apostrophe. So you can bring that back if you want and save it that way. But now we can obviously change the opacity of certain layers, and that might actually be broken. Yeah, okay, good. So I need to fix that later. It's always little bugs that I find when I play this. Right, so I'm going to clear all, clear and reset, and show you some of these other features. A few bugs to fix yet, for sure. But as you can see, there's a lot happening. Now, you can't draw up the way with these. I've shown this before because you're basically overlapping these tiles and it's not intelligent enough to know what you're doing. Not yet. And there's composite grid, and then there's these animation slices. Got the 4 slice. I think the more I develop this, the more bugs I create, and there's already a handful. So when you do something like this, you're basically making a brush set. Okay, it looks animated here, but you can save this out just by doing Control S. And I'm just going to save this as test. And if you go to a new brush and left click, yeah, you can load in a single image, but we want to load in a 4 slice. And we're going to load in the test one, and where is it? It is here. Okay, and then basically that makes up a new brush with that G to hide the grid, and now you've got this that you can dot around. I'm going to turn off stamp mode, and then it can basically draw with it. So it's not short of a lot of things that you can do. Sorry about the throat. You see this animation thing still going, just click stop here. And you can turn off that anim slice as well. And yeah, there's quite a lot of features to it. You can also offset the sprite location in the cursor by clicking this, or center it. And anytime you want to load that sprite in, if you accidentally clear everything, you can just add it in again. Search the file. Later it will record them so that you don't have to do this, but yeah, here's some palm trees that I made before. If I change the spacing up, you'll see that I can dot these around properly. Okay, thanks for watching this video. Apologies for the groggy throat. It's been a late night, and I hope you like using BlitPaint. Any bugs, yeah, definitely let me know. There's already a handful to get through, but I think it's not bad for 6 weeks. So have fun. Bye.